Hi everyone, it's Sophia from the Happy Vagina Project, and it's Let's Talk Sex Tuesday today. And today we're talking about something very special, very dear, very gentle. We are talking about pregnancy and infant loss. And that's because today is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day, and actually the entire month of October is dedicated to supporting and holding those 1 in 4 families who have experienced miscarriage, stillbirth, or infant death. So it's a pretty common phenomenon and something that many people are experiencing. So, deep breath, yes. If you are joining me today live or on the replay, thank you for being here. I honor that this is not always an easy thing to talk about, and it takes a lot of courage and bravery and gumption and all kinds of things to sit with this sometimes challenging topic. And I also want to honor that we all have very different experiences, right? So some folks may have experienced, an ectopic pregnancy where they experienced a miscarriage and it was very early on and they hadn't really connected yet. And others have lost a child at delivery or in the first couple of months. Some of you may be joining from a really recent place, and others may have experienced this loss several years ago. Full disclosure, I have not ever experienced miscarriage or stillbirth or anything like that, although many folks I know have, and we've definitely had a really big scare in our close family friend experienced a really big illness in their infant recently. So it is something that is very near and special to me, and because we are the Happy Vagina Project, I felt that it was important to honor those who have been through this and tackle this topic. So what do I want to say today? I have some notes to look at because there's a few things that I wanted to share. So I think the perspective that I'm kind of approaching this from for today is around this notion that the Happy Vagina Project is all about, which is that our vagina is our second heart. It is the space of our power and our intuition as women. And our vaginas are really great places or parts of our body to dialogue with, to connect with that power, that pleasure, that presence. So I'm all about supporting women to get back into dialogue with that part of their body. And there's lots of things that get in the way of that dialogue being regular and positive and healthy. And one of them is definitely pregnancy loss, infant loss, any kind of trauma that we've had around pregnancy, birth, children, and sex, right, is going to put us in a separate relationship with our vagina. So that can then have an impact or a ripple effect on our relationship with our bodies, our relationship with our womanhood, our relationship with our motherhood. Some of those ripples can be positive, can be life-changing in many ways, and other ripple effects of that kind of imprint can serve us in the moment of that grief and that trauma, but may years down the road no longer serve us and start to hinder our connection with our pleasure and ourselves and our bodies and our womanhood, right? So today I want to be really careful. This is not about erasing one's grief, right? Grief is a cyclical thing. We all experience it in different ways. This is not about erasing it. It's not about erasing what happened. It's not about erasing the person that wasn't able to join us in this realm or on this planet to this time around. This is about reconnecting with that part of your body when you're feeling ready and called to in your journey, and really asking yourself what you need to release in order to move forward, not just in your grief, but in your life, in your sex life, in your connection with your partner, and what you want to hold on to and honor, right? So I want to talk about 3 specific tools that you can explore to help you come back into connection and dialogue with that part of your body, release what needs to be released, what's no longer serving, embrace and hold on to that which you want to hold on to, and come back into connection with your partner, because experiencing something like this together as a couple can be challenging. We experience grief in different ways, we communicate our grief in different ways, we process our grief in different ways, and it can become again, like this thing that inserts itself in our relationship with ourselves and also in our relationship with our partners. So that's kind of where I'm coming from today, and I really want to honor that these tools are not going to work for everyone. They're not going to work for everyone on every stage of the journey. You might try them now and find that a few months down the road or a few years down the road is a more useful practice for you. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to share. Definitely open to feedback. If you tried something and it went really well and you experienced a breakthrough or an opening or a releasing, please do let me know. And if you have some feedback for me today about today, my wording choices, my expressions, or things I should have mentioned, then please do let me know as well. I'm always here to serve and to get better. So, what are some of these tools? I think I've noted everything that I wanted to know. Oh, the last thing that I wanted to say is I did get some questions about abortion specifically, and I think I'm actually going to do a separate video about that, although I will say that any of the tools that I'm using today would be appropriate to use in a scenario where someone needed to terminate a pregnancy. So I'll do a separate video about that just because I feel like it's in a different bucket, but the tools that I'm sharing today do apply in the same context. All right, okay, so tool time. This will be saved on my Facebook Live and will go up on YouTube, and the replay will get shared out. So if you just want to sit and kind of be present with what I'm sharing right now, you can do that. Otherwise, feel free to grab a pen and paper so that you can write down some of the steps that I want to share. Okay, so the first tool that I want to share is a simple vagina connection practice. Okay, I've got a couple of quick questions or dialogue openers. So the goal here is, after a traumatic event, after a big change, after something like this that's going to leave an imprint on our hearts, on our bodies, on our souls, right? After something like this where, let's say you went through a miscarriage, like depending on how late into your pregnancy it was, you have gone through a labor, you have gone through some of the physical changes that happen. So you may still be experiencing some of the changes that would happen in a typical pregnancy, right? So things have changed. And in particular, there's this large new emotional thing that may be sitting in the body. And I come from a somatic background and from an energy healing background where the belief, the perspective is that we have an energy body, right? And that energy body moves emotion. Just like your nervous system moves sensation, just like your circulatory system moves blood, just like your musculature system helps you move, your energy system moves emotion and it moves energy. And when we have something big like this happening, that energy can get stored or locked into different parts of the body. It can get stored in the vagina if it's something sexual, or not. It could get stored somewhere else. And that might look like congestion in your energy body, meaning that emotions are no longer flowing and things kind of get stagnant and stuck. Or it could manifest in physical tightness and stuckness, right? So this can lead to things like painful intercourse, a lack of sensation during intercourse or sexual interactions, sensation of like irritation and irritability during sexual interactions, and just kind of a breakdown of the connection that we have with our body and with our true self, right? Depending on what has happened, we may really feel like our heart and our souls kind of shut down for a little while. And that means our vaginas can shut down for a little while too. So facilitating reopening that dialogue is something that can be very helpful to start to unpack some of those pieces that happened and work towards getting that energy flowing again, getting those muscles moving again, and mostly getting the emotions moving so that they're cleared and gone, especially the ones that are no longer serving us, right? So all you're gonna do is find quiet, distraction-free space for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour if you really kind of want to dive deep and you know you need a lot of space around these kinds of things. You're just gonna sit however's comfortable for you. So you could sit cross-legged on the floor on a meditation pillow. You could sit or even lie on your bed, on the floor, on the couch. Anything that's going to feel comfort and allow you to come into rest. Although if you can, being semi-reclined and sort of up and more alert is better or more ideal than being completely laid back and sort of in a falling asleep position, because we're trying to bring awakeness, awareness, presence to what we're doing instead of relaxing into a sleep state, right? So once you're comfortable, you're going to put one hand on your heart and one hand on your yoni. So you don't need to be naked. This is just about putting your hand in your crotch and your vagina and just putting nice, firm pressure with the palm of your hand so that you're feeling a connection there. So just like I can feel my hand on my heart here, I want to feel my hand on my body. You might even rock back and forth a little bit on it just to kind of create that awareness, right? So brain is going, oh, okay, we're connecting here and we're connecting here. One thing that I really love to do and that I find kind of helps me to tune in is to imagine a tiny, tiny thread kind of going from the top of my head down through the center of my body, from my heart down through my vagina, and then sort of hanging down into the earth. And then I kind of imagine a little heart hanging on the bottom of it as well. So it's almost like this big, long Christmas ornament string that's going through my heart, through my vagina, and dangling down into the center of the earth with a heart at the bottom. And that just allows me to sort of feel grounded and in my body and in connection, and also to, again, bring connection between my heart and my vagina, and then sort of this third heart, which I kind of imagine as like the universal heart, right? So hand on heart, hand on vagina, we're visualizing our string, our thread, our connection, and that heart on the bottom. And we're going to take 21 deep breaths in. So we won't do all 21 breaths today, but you're just going to take a nice deep belly breath, fill that belly, count to 1 in your head and breathe out. Breathe in again, count to 2, breathe out. You're going to do that 21 times to count to 21. That just brings us into a state of presence, focusing on the breath, focusing on the sensation of air coming in and air coming out, letting go of the distractions of the day and other things that are going on, and bringing ourselves into the body, okay? Once you're there, once you're relaxed, once you're present, then we're going to start to try to invite some dialogue with the vagina, with the yoni. And I do want to just interrupt myself here for a minute and say, this might feel like enough for you, depending on where you're at in your journey. This might feel challenging, it might feel uncomfortable, or it might feel really, really good. So just be okay with wherever you're at today and stop whenever you need to stop doing the practice. And some days it's going to feel different than other days. So, my teacher Davey always says we're just showing up to see what the body has to offer today. And it might be different than yesterday and different tomorrow. Okay? And I have 3 questions that I want to invite you to to just think to yourself and to your vagina. But you can also, if a different question comes to you, if a different dialogue comes to you, then honor that and flow with that, okay? This is all about connecting to our intuition, to our bodies. So my first question is, what does my body / my vagina, what does my body or what does my vagina want me to know about this loss? What does my vagina or what does my body want me to know about this loss? And then just be quiet, breathe. I like to really focus on my womb space and kind of imagine it, and then just see what comes up for you. It might be a random thought that comes into your mind. It might be a warm sensation in a part of your body. It might be an image or a memory. Your body's going to talk to you in all different kinds of ways. So just sit and see what the answer is. 2 things you can do here. You can journal after each question. You can journal at the end of the whole process. Or one thing that I like to do sometimes is just turn my voice memo on my phone and record myself so that I can just speak out loud what I'm hearing and record it, and I don't have to actually write. So that's your first question. What does my vagina or my body want me to know about this loss? Okay. Second question is, and you're talking to your vagina, right? As if she's another person. So you're saying, what do you, vagina, feel ready to release? What do you feel ready to release? I'm just going to turn down my light a little bit because the window lighting is opened up a bit. What do you feel ready to release? Okay. And the last question is, what do you want to hold on to? What do you want to hold on to? So those are my 3 questions. What does my vagina want me to know about this loss? What does my vagina feel ready to release? And what does my vagina want to hold on to? You could ask yourself other questions. You could just sit and say, hey, vagina, okay, let's talk about that. How do you feel about what happened? What's going on for you in this process? What do you need me to know about what happened? And just be open to hearing what you hear. And once you've journaled it or released it, you can do any kind of ritual that you need to hold on to the things that you want to hold on to and release the things that you want to release. You can write them down on a piece of paper and burn them. You can throw them out the window. You can go to the river and shed them all in there. Releasing rituals as a whole thing. But the main point here is about getting back into conversation and dialogue with your vagina about this big event, this big thing that happened, so that she can give you some guidance on what you might need during this time of grief or at different times in your grief cycle, and what could support you. So that is my first tool, and I look forward to hearing from some of you about what your experiences might be with using it. So, second tool is around some energy healing and using the Tibetan 5 elements to do some energetic clearing. And this, like I was saying before, is not about erasing the whole process, not erasing the whole thing. It's about erasing or removing or releasing those things that are no longer serving us in this experience and holding on to those things that are. So I'm trained as a tantrika or a tantric sex coach, and my training is from the Institute for Authentic Tantra, and the lineage that I follow is the Shegpu Kagya village lineage. So it's from the Shegpu Kagya Valley in Tibet. So it's a Tibetan Tantra practice. And if you haven't tuned into any of my lives yet about Tantra, you can check out the one that I did that sort of explains the basics. But the notion of Tantra, the meaning of Tantra, is to blend or weave light and form with sound. So in this lineage, we basically believe that there are 5 sort of primordial elements of which all things in the universe are made: humans, books, buildings, trees, the planets. And those elements are fire, earth, space, air, and water. So slightly different than the Chinese 5 elements, but similar notion. So these 5 elements are kind of the raw materials from which everything in space and time is made out of. And each one has a light, a color, a shape, and a sound. And when we blend those things, we call on the healing properties of these energies, of these elements, and they support us to release emotions that are not serving us. They heal different parts of the body. They're aligned with the chakra system. They call in new kinds of wisdom and energies for us. And there's 3 specific elements that I want to talk about today that I feel would be really, really helpful in the context of pregnancy and infant loss. And I'll share just a really simple practice that you can do to use them. If you're interested in learning more about the Tibetan 5 element meditations, then do just send me an email, sophia@thehappyvaginaproject.com, and I can send you some longer form, more formal meditations if you want to experiment with these. But you don't have to be a heavy meditator or energy healer to experiment with these. And again, this is just an invitation to explore and see if these tools might work for you. So the 3 elements that I think are kind of the most relevant to this process are fire, space, and water. And there's a couple of different reasons for that. So each of the elements is essentially an antidote to a root poison. And those root poisons are emotions, negative emotions that cause harm to the body. So fire element is the antidote to attachment. So when we hold on too firmly to people, places, and things. Space element is the antidote to ignorance. And that's kind of a weird term, but it basically means being ignorant is when we are disconnected from our spirituality, disconnected from when we view ourselves as separate from, you know, the universe, all beings and all things, right? We don't have that sense of connectedness. And water element is the antidote to anger. So if for whatever reason we are experiencing attachment through our grief, really holding on to what happened, really holding on to this soul that came to visit us, really holding on to what we could have done differently, really holding on to any number of things, then fire element is going to support us to let go of those things that we're holding on to that do not serve us. Water element is going to be all about releasing any anger, fear, pain, frustration that we're feeling around this, especially if we are looking for a reason, looking for someone to blame, or feeling that, you know, loss of control, really, that something like this really makes fresh in our minds. And space element is all about bringing us back into connection with spirituality, whatever that looks like for you. But that sense of connectedness, that sense that we are all one, that we are all connected, that we all are here to support each other, that the universe has our backs, that, you know, there is some meaning in all things, whatever that is for us. So when we meditate on these different elements, we basically are like putting medicine on those strong emotions that we might be feeling. Another one that could serve is also air element. It works with jealousy. It's the antidote to jealousy. So if we're experiencing a lot of jealousy and negative feelings when we're seeing other people's, pregnancy news and stuff like that, then we can work with air element as well. The other reasons that I think these elements are super useful to explore is that water element is all about clarity, right? So usually on the other side of our anger is a very clear message about limits that are being trespassed or, limits that we're hitting. So when we meditate with water element, we heal our anger and we bring clarity and the wisdom of mirror-like wisdom into our life. When we meditate with fire element, we heal attachment, we become magnetic, and we start to attract those things that we're desiring. And we also develop a very discerning wisdom. So we start to really notice what's serving, what's not, what's working for me, what's not. Fire element also sits in the sacral chakra, so it heals your reproductive organs, it heals your digestive fires, heals everything that's sort of in the pelvis. So if you had a lot of physical trauma from your experience, then fire element is going to be really supportive in recovery there. And space element is all about this connection to openness, right? So if we're in a place in our grieving journey where being closed off and shut down is no longer serving us in our life or in our relationships, then space element can help us to reconnect with that sense of connection and open ourselves back up, right, to life and love and loss and all of those things. Okay, so how do we actually meditate with these energies? How do we bring them in? So it's relatively simple. There are more sort of formal practices that you can use, about 20-minute meditations around visualizing the different elements and bringing them in. You usually want to work with one at a time. That doesn't mean, what I mean by that is in a session. You're going to work with one at a time. But you could meditate on a different one of these elements each day, or you could work with one for several weeks and then work with another. Doesn't really matter. So if you wake up one day and you're just feeling like really attached to something and you want to release that, then you could work with some fire element. And if you're waking up another morning and you are angry and you have no idea why and you're just really hoping to kind of release that, then you might want to explore some water element. So how can we do this in the simplest form? Well, remembering back to our meaning of Tantra. Tantra means to weave or blend light and form with sound. So each of these elements has a color, a shape, and a sound. And when we blend those things together, we're meditating on that element, okay? So I'll do a super quick walkthrough here of what one might look like. And then you can kind of mix and match. So what do you need to know? Let's start with fire element because that's a pretty one that's really at the core of all this. So fire element is red. It's a triangle or a pyramid. We imagine it in 3-dimensional space. And its seed syllable or sound is rum. R-A-M. So if you wanted to bring that energy in with you, you could find a nice meditative pose, right? So a meditation pose would be legs crossed, back nice and tall, your chin slightly tucked. We do eyes in a soft gaze and open because we're trying to engage all of the senses. So we want to keep our sense of sight open. Tongue resting gently on the roof of the mouth and hands in just a comfortable position. And you're just going to start in the heart and imagine a teeny tiny pinprick of that ruby red light. And it's going to grow and grow and grow until it gets about as big as a grape. And then you're going to imagine it floating down into the sacral chakra and turning into a pyramid, 3-dimensional. Ruby red and bright. You can almost imagine bright red light filling your entire pelvis, your entire body. Once you've got there, the other thing that you can do is try to connect with whatever images or associations you have with the element of fire. So I like to imagine a nice big roaring bonfire on my dad's farm, or the warmth and heat and coziness of sitting by the wood stove in my mom's house. Anything that's going to make you think of like fire, heat, passion, warmth, releasing things, melting things. You can think of visuals, you can think of words, anything that's connecting you with this healing power of fire. Okay, so you're imagining a bright red light in your pelvis, this red pyramid, and you're really connecting with that fire energy. And then you're just going to use that seed syllable, rum, and you're going to chant it. And usually you want to start with 3 big ones, so like 1 breath in and then a chant 3 times. And then you just do quick rum, 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 rum. So if I were to start, I would take a deep breath in. Rum. Right? I'm going to do it again. Rum. So you do that 3 times, and then you take a deep breath. Rum, 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 rum. You can do that for as long as it feels good. You could also just throughout the day imagine a red ball of light in your pelvis. You can even see the letters RAM in that ball or in your pelvis, connecting with that energy. So that's a very short, super simplified version of a fire element meditation. In order to get the true benefits out of it, you want to be doing a formal practice. And like I said before, you can send me an email, sophia@thehappyvaginaproject.com, and I can send you the formal meditations. So fire element is a red pyramid. We say Ram is its seed syllable. Space element is a white sphere. It sits in the heart, and the seed syllable is Vam, V-A-M. So again, we would just imagine a tiny pinprick of white light. We'd watch it grow, become a sphere in the heart. Imagine that radiating white light filling our entire bodies, and then just chanting Vam, 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 Vam to create that connection, okay? And then water element sits in the third eye, but in the center of the skull, it's blue, and it's a sphere as well. And its seed syllable is Mam, M-A-M. So same thing, would start in the heart. Tantra always begins and ends in the heart. We start in the heart. We imagine that blue sphere getting big. We bring it up into the brain, into the skull, into the head, and then we can chant Mam. So that is how we can use some Tibetan 5-element healing practices, energy healing practices in our release journey. So thinking of them as antidotes to different emotions, right? If we're experiencing anger, we want to go water element. If we're experiencing attachment, we want to go fire element. And if we're experiencing disconnection or ignorance, we want to go with space element. And also thinking of the things that we want to call in. If we want to call in clarity, the wisdom of clarity, or mirror-like wisdom, we want to use water element. If we want to call in openness and connection, we want to use space element. And if we want to call in discerning awareness and magnetism, we want to use fire element. So those are another tool that you can play with. And last but not least, I just want to share a partner connection practice. Now, this practice isn't particularly about release or working with grief in particular. It's just a really great tool for bringing yourself back into connection with your partner after a hard day, after a fight, when things are feeling tense, or during hard times. When we are grieving a pregnancy, an infant, a child, there's a range of emotions, a range of experiences. Our grief isn't going to look like our partner's grief, and we might find ourselves feeling disconnected. So this is a simple practice that we can use to just come back to each other. I think it can be used to facilitate dialogue, so it can be used to create good energy before you open up a challenging conversation about what's happening. And it can just be used to kind of be like, hey, I'm feeling like you're way over there, and I need you to come back over here, right? So it's really simple. You're just gonna sit together, facing each other. This is really nice to do in the bath if you have a big enough bathtub, or you can just do it on the couch. You can sit across from each other, or you can sit what's called yab yum, where usually the male partner's on the bottom, and the female partner or the smaller partner would sit on top of that person's lap with their legs kind of wrapped around them. And you're just going to maybe hold hands or find some form of physical touch that feels good. And you're going to use your lookers. You're going to gaze into each other's eyes and breathe together. Deep breaths in and deep breaths out. Even that right there, just pausing and looking into each other's eyes and breathing together can be super powerful. And if either one of you is feeling very present emotions, it can feel vulnerable, right? We can avoid looking at each other because it can feel vulnerable. But if you can sit in that space together and hold each other in that space together, I like to sort of imagine that I'm sending messages with my eyes. I'm sending, I love you, I care about you, you're safe, I'm here. And I'm receiving that back from my partner. And that can allow an emotional release. We might cry, we might sob, we might experience different things that can be super, super healing and super, super connecting. And then the next thing that you can do is you're breathing together, you're sitting together, you're looking in each other's eyes, is just to share 3 gratitudes. So I'm going to go first. I'm going to say 3 things that I'm grateful about for you. It could be things I love about your body. It could be things I love about our relationship and how we are together, or just how I love you as a human being. Excuse me. If you're receiving these words from me, you're just going to receive them. You're going to allow them to wash over you. You're going to take them in fully. And then when I'm done sharing, it's my turn. You're going to share to me, and I'm going to receive. I've never seen this tool fail, and it works instantly to make people feel connected and relaxed together. So it's a really great technique to use before entering into a conversation where maybe you want to be sharing with your partner what your grief experience is like, or support that you might need from them through this process. So those are my shares today, connecting with your vagina and your body and reopening that dialogue, using some Tibetan Tantra energy healing tools to release what is no longer serving you from this journey, and using a quick partner connection practice to just feel connected through what can be a challenging time, and calibrate your energy levels before you engage in any big conversations. I want to thank you all so much for watching today. If you found this useful, please pass it on to anyone you think might benefit from it. Please do share your feedback. So you can always email me or DM me and let me know if you tried any of these practices, how they went, or if you have any recommendations for other tools or information that you would like me to provide next time, then please do let me know. This is a really important topic. Like I was saying off the top, 1 in 4 families are likely to experience miscarriage or infant loss. And it's emotional. It's big. It's life-changing and life-altering. And October is really the month. I mean, we always want to be, but now is a really great reminder that it's important to lift up those folks who've experienced this, to provide them a platform and a space to share and talk about it if that's what's going to serve them. And as friends and family members, to reach out and ask folks what they need for support during this time. Much, much love to you all. You can always hit me up and reach out to me about this kinds of stuff. And I will see you next week.